This is the Free Spirits of L&D podcast, where we talk about life as a freelancer in the fascinating world of learning and development, and ask our guests all the questions you wanted to know but were maybe too afraid to ask. Yes, we even talk about how we get business and what we all charge. At the end of each episode, each guest gets to set a bonus question for the next one. So whether you're thinking about taking the leap, brand new to freelancing, or an experienced freelancer, you won't want to miss this. Today's guest is Gary Butterfield. Gary is a pretty prolific freelancer who runs Joy Junction, and they partner with HR functions, wellbeing teams, and senior leaders to create joyful workplace cultures. I'm sure we'll find out loads more about that as the conversation goes on. But welcome, Gary.
Morning.
Good morning. Should we start with a bit about your freelance story so far? I mentioned that you're quite a prolific freelancer. So talk us through what your freelance life has been like so far.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So despite only looking 21, I've actually run my own business for about 18 years now. I think only a year of my career has been employed within an organization. The rest of it I've worked for myself. I started my career in the fitness industry. I was a personal trainer for a number of years, and I joined the industry because I wanted to help people with their well-being goals, whatever way, shape, or form that meant to them. And over the years, I help people with confidence issues, with mental health challenges, with sport-specific training goals, and then the usual lose weight, tone up, that type of stuff. That's a real broad brush of ambitions and aspirations. I then fell into HR at the University of Sheffield as part of their wellbeing team. I was a consultant, so I worked with them from 2011 until 2019. And I left the fitness industry. And I left the fitness industry, A, because of this opportunity, but B, and primarily because of my experience of the appraisal process. And we'll get to that later. We'll pick that up again shortly. So I joined the University of Sheffield as part of their wellbeing team as a consultant, and I co-founded this wellbeing proposition there called Juice. And Juice did two things. It brought that wellbeing proposition into one place, made it really easy for people to access. But the second thing is all built around social wellbeing. It's about trying to bring people into one room, one physical room, to share common experiences and shared passions. And we enable people to share their passion for Lego, for colouring, for running, cycling, reading, writing. We did sword dancing, which is weird. We did all sorts of things. About that person, kind of like show and tell when you're at school, but in your workplace. And we won loads of awards for what we did. Loads of wine was drunk and good nights were had. But the real sort of driver for us was what colleagues of the university were telling us about the impact of Juice on not just their career, but personally too, on their sense of community at the organization. And we span out into a subsidiary in 2015, and I ran that subsidiary for a number of years until its unfortunate closure in 2023. And there's loads in there, there's loads to unpack in that closure. And then in 2023, this business that I thought was going to be my career, it's going to be the thing that I do for the rest of my life, it suddenly was gone. And I had a real big reflection period that I had to go through. And I thought to myself, what do I like? What elements of my career since 2010, 9, 10, whenever it was, what elements of that do I really like? And I really liked presenting. I really liked working with boards. That's something I got a lot of value from. You're working at scale. I really enjoyed training line managers off the back of my appraisal experience. I created a tool which I now use every day. And then the third was presenting and engaging with employees directly. So I thought they're the three things that I want to do. I then created Joy Junction, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's been 2.5 years now. And I've had the privilege of working with organizations, big and small, to support them with their wellbeing proposition, from strategy development through to teaching employees the tools and the models that they need to be able to take responsibility and action towards their own well-being. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the past, 19 years.
Thanks, Gary. I think I know you touched on this, and I do want to sort of revisit a couple of those points and dig a little bit deeper. Can we go back to the fitness instructor piece? Because that sounds like your last role as a non-freelancer. You mentioned there was something about the appraisal process that made you want to get out of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that set the trajectory for the next 18, 19 years. I remember, so the fitness industry is seen as this glamorous industry to be in. It's full of young, fit, healthy people, and they're all just training all the time. And you see, and there is an element of that. To be fair, there is an element of that, but it's a hard industry to be in. It's all about sales. You're paid barely anything as an employee within a large chain gym. The money really is in creating your own gym if you have the appetite to do that. And I remember being booked in with my appraisal with my line manager, and I was really looking forward to it. I didn't know better. I was really looking forward to it. I was looking forward to having a one-to-one with my line manager, talking about how I want to progress, where my career is going to go, what my aspirations will look like for the next 5 to 10 years, my connection to colleagues, what I wanted to learn, the impact that I had on members, on the organization. I was interested in exploring all the big blue sky thinking topics. I was really looking forward to it. And then I got to my meeting, and it was 55 minutes of me just getting rinsed about sales targets. So, what are your targets, Gary? How are you going to hit your targets, Gary? What are you doing to hit your targets, Gary? Target. And then we had 5 minutes at the end spare. And I just got this flippant, how are you, Gary? You happy? And then that was my appraisal done. I was back down to gym floor. And this meeting that I perhaps wrongly had put on this pedestal, that something I was really excited for, was just absolute garbage, and I went back down to gym floor, and I just thought that was shit. That was horrendous. And I handed my notice in the next day, and I left. And then I fell into HR at the University of Sheffield, and the rest is history. But I thought that experience with the appraisal process was unique. I thought I had just made a mistake in assuming this meeting was about X, Y, and Z, when it wasn't. It wasn't unique. And I learned that a number of years later. I was presenting for a client, which is a large university based in the UK. I asked, I can't remember why I asked the question, but I did, who here has had a poor experience with the appraisal process? And the vast majority of people in the room had a poor experience with the appraisal process. Suddenly, this thing that was unique to me wasn't unique to me at all. And on the train back to Leeds, where I'm from and where I live, I just wrote down a few ideas. I thought, surely there's a way that we can have this conversation between colleagues and explore these big ticket items that I was looking forward to, and frame the entire thing around well-being. And that's I made a tool called the Conversation Canvas, which any listener is welcome to have. It's free to download. But I created this tool, and it's now used around the world. I'm incredibly proud of it. And I, as a profession, now teach line managers how to use it, with their colleagues. So that appraisal experience has really set the foundations to what I do now.
Wow. And we could talk about we could spend the entire episode talking about appraisals, but I had a similar experience talking to people who've been through those sorts of things. Very often, it just led to extreme cynicism, because people quickly realize that if you want to have a good appraisal, in inverted commas, the best thing to do is to massively undersell yourself and set really low targets that you will very easily hit, and then you can just coast through the rest of the year knowing that you've achieved what you want to achieve. That's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, absolutely. And a model that I lean upon for every aspect of my work is called me, we, and us. Now, in a well-being perspective, but it can be applied anywhere. But in a well-being perspective, what does well-being mean to me as an individual? What does well-being mean to we as a team or department, and what does well-being mean to us as an organization? Now, wherever you are in the organization, if you can answer those three key stakeholders, all three of those key stakeholders, you're going to have a much better chance of having a successful well-being strategy. So you're thinking at all levels. When it comes to your appraisal, a particular frustration for me is if whenever you're asked to set your goals, your ambitions for the next 12 months, it's always, all right, what can you do to achieve that? And then that's it. The team and the leader and the organization kind of washes the hands away from that because it's not their problem, it's yours. You've got to achieve that. But let's say you want to increase your management capability. You know, quite a common goal. I want to progress in my career. I want to become a manager and, you know, work up that ladder. Quite a common goal. What can I do to do that? I can read books. I can go on courses. I can listen to Diary of a CEO on repeat. You know, I can do all these different things, you know, but ultimately I can't achieve my goal if my line manager doesn't give me the opportunity to shadow HR, to run safe projects, to understand how finances work, how projects are financed, to get a good idea of how to use a spreadsheet for cash flow. I can't achieve that goal if I don't have those support mechanisms in place. But that's never discussed in the appraisal process. It's always about what you can do to achieve that goal and not what I can do to help you.
So when I think about your personal brand, because we've known each other for quite a few years now, right? I always think about sort of you're extremely positive, very kind of gregarious and agreeable and really easy to kind of chat to. You're all about well-being. You're like, in my mind, you're Mr. Wellbeing. If I needed anything to do with well-being, you'd be the first person I'd come and talk to. And also, I know that you've got a big fitness background, and that sort of worked its way into a lot of your work. How long did it take you to sort of figure out your kind of niche as a business and get that brand going? How did you decide on well-being as the target?
When I was younger, I wanted to be an architect, and either an architect or a fireman, one of the two. Two very contrasting professions, but I always wanted to do that. And then I got an interest in in health well-being when I was sort of late teens, and then just went from there. Really, how I went from that to what I do today, it was by accident, to be honest. It wasn't by design. It was by accident. So I went into the fitness industry because I just liked it. I wasn't thinking 10 years, 20 years, where I'm going to be. I just entered the industry because I enjoyed it and I liked what I liked it. And then I joined the University of Sheffield because I got an opportunity to do so. So I joined. Again, I had no ambition to go into HR and corporate well-being. I just got an opportunity to do it, and I thought, yeah, why not? It sounds cool. So I did it, and then we created the subsidiary because there was a lot of organisations. We were presenting up and down the country, conferences, CIPD, and the like, and loads of organisations came to us and said, we like what you're doing here. We don't know where to start. Can you come do it for us? As a collective, we decided, right, we'll create this subsidiary. I was going to lead it. So do you want to do it, Gary? So yeah, it sounds cool. Why not? So I did it. And then it just kind of, I think it's just been open to opportunities when they arise and just having a go. And that's kind of how I've got to where I am now. But well-being is the common theme, the common thread behind all the things that I've done. And social well-being, which is a particular interest of mine, I just found it. I just found it when I was at the University of Sheffield. The university sector was going through a really big period of change, like it is now, but it was going through a really big period of change. And we wanted our 8,000 colleagues at the university to feel like they belonged at the university, feel like it's a community that you're a part of, and we would like you to remain here. We're all in this together, and we were. HR weren't immune to these changes happening nationally across HE. They were impacting it by it too. And I just kind of saw and felt the power of social well-being and about collective well-being. I saw and felt the power of it there, and that's just stayed with me ever since. And that's what I like. And social well-being is not by accident that social prescribing in the UK and the NHS has become such a powerful tool for enabling community well-being. It's not an accident that if you're having a mental health challenge, it's the sharing of collective experience that helps people to do stuff like to achieve their goals and overcome obstacles and challenges. Social well-being is the glue that holds all the other well-being elements together, in my mind. So I think you can make real big impact with it. So that it's a bit of a non-answer to be honest, but that's kind of how I've got to where I am today and where my interests are.
I think it's a really interesting answer. I wouldn't say it's a cop-out answer at all, because it is. That was the thing that struck me, is that there is a bit of a golden thread running through everything that you've done up until now, and it's all very much linked to well-being. And I think it takes experience and time to sort of look back and see that. I've certainly not found that so far in my journey, but I think I'm a little bit sort of earlier on into my freelance journey than you've been. The thing that really strikes me with your story as well is that it's a very honest one too. There's been kind of ups and downs like with any business, and there've been periods of reflection as well as periods of kind of intense work and busyness. What have been your reflections looking back over the last few years of kind of what's really shaped where you've got to right now?
I mean, EGL closing was a major down part of my life, So it was a result of COVID. The whole proposition through Juice at the University of Sheffield, and then as a subsidiary working with various other companies, the whole proposition was about making that user journey as simple as possible. It's really important, and I preach about that all day long. Now, I'm always talking about organizations about that. But the second bit was social well-being, about trying to bring people together through shared experiences and engage with other people in one physical room. And the business, late 2019, early 2020, was doing really well. It was still small. It was still bootstrapped, So I wasn't Facebook. It was still a very small little business, but I had some really good clients. I had loads of organizations around the UK going through contractual negotiations, and I had and many of which were ready to sign the dotted line, and that is really, really exciting for my small business. And then COVID came. The minute lockdown was announced, I knew that for my business, it was the beginning of the end of days. I knew it. And lo and behold, the next day, the next day after lockdowns were announced, I had a flood of emails in my inbox. Clients leaving me. I lost all my clients except one who stuck with me. So my cash flow was just battered. Every single prospective client that had contracts in train or had meetings lined up, every single one of them cancelled. So suddenly I was in this desert on my own, and it was horrendous. And I went on furlough. So and I was on furlough until it ended. So I couldn't build the business. Couldn't do anything within the business. All I could do was pay bills. And this sounds like that I've got some animosity against COVID and the measures in place, and so I completely agree, and still do to present day, what we had to do as a society within the UK, but also as a global society, the response we had to do. Completely agree with it, but professionally, it was horrendous. It's just absolutely horrendous, and I struggled with loneliness during that period as well, because I was very much, whilst I had a partner who was incredibly supportive and friends and family who I could Google Meet with and play poker on a Friday and do all this stuff. I was very much on my own because nobody really knew what it was like running a business during this period. In the circumstances that I was in, it was just a really lonely place to be. And I managed to keep it going for 3 years. So August 2023 is when we closed. I made the decision April, May time, and I told my remaining client that I was going to call it a day. And that was a difficult conversation to have, but they were incredibly understanding. They were amazing. The only reason why the business survived is because of them. I'll always be forever in their debt. But that point, I had to reflect at that point on what I'd done. I saw this business as my career, something I'm going to do, and so I'm one of those people that probably won't retire. I've got no desire to, as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I always saw that business as something I would do until my end of days, and then suddenly it wasn't there. There was and I put so much of my identity into that business. That business in effect was me. We were one and the same, and then suddenly that identity you created. The business was 8 years old when it closed. Suddenly that business that you created over 8 years was gone, and I had to think of existential questions like who am I, what I do, what value do I add to the world. I would think about these things, and I just couldn't answer them. I couldn't answer those questions. And then I just thought, Gary, just sort yourself out, and what do you want to do now? This is an end, but it's also a beginning to be, but the risk of being cliche. This is something you can start anew here. What over the past number of years, what parts have you really, really liked, and what parts have you not liked as much? Get rid of the stuff that you've not liked as much, and just do the stuff that you like. And that's what I did. So I reflected on what I enjoyed over those years in the fitness industry, and then in HR, and then running a subsidiary. I thought I like these bits, therefore I'm just going to do those bits and build a business around that. Like yourself, I enjoy video editing, I enjoy tech, I enjoy doing these different things. These other bits don't serve me anymore, so I'm going to put them to one side, and I'm going to lean into talking and researching about tech and teaching other people about it. You've gone through a similar journey yourself.
Yeah. And the thing that strikes me about all of that is that the process that you went through of kind of auditing your professional life is something that's a really healthy thing to do for any business at any point. I think, this episode will be going out in kind of late February. So it's still a really good time of the year to have some reflection around, well, what's been going on in the last 12 months? What parts of my work have I really enjoyed? What bits have I not enjoyed so much? And is there anything that we can do to maximize the stuff that brings us some joy and minimize the stuff that maybe drains us and drains our souls? Because we all have them. And the beauty of running a freelance business is that, yes, there is an extent to which you have to do a bit of everything, but you do have choice. And particularly if you've got some money to spend and you can delegate aspects of your work, the bits that you don't enjoy, and the people who can do them really well, it's always going to be a great investment. So, I mean, I don't want to dwell on too much on the negative here, but which parts of running a freelance business don't you enjoy so much?
Finance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, finance. So
this is a bit of a theme on the podcast. This one keeps coming up again and again.
I don't dislike finance, but if it was a choice between doing something well-being related or delivering, or doing finance, I would say delivering any day of the week. And so I am a big advocate, like you just referenced it. I'm a big advocate of offloading the bits that don't serve you, like you want them to. So the running a business, cash flow is the most important thing. I've learned that the hard way for EGL, and its closure. It is the most important thing, and you have to have a finger on it. However, if you don't enjoy it, get rid of the bigger bits. I don't mind reconciling my accounts. I don't mind jumping on Zero and doing invoices and doing, that's easy. It's easy stuff. But when it comes to tax returns and self-assessments and all that type of stuff, I'm just not interested. I have to do it, but I'm just not interested. So I've just got somebody else to do that because they're good at it. They enjoy it. That's what they're trained for. Crack on, if you can afford to, whether it's finance or whether it's marketing or BD, less so BD, I believe you should do your own BD. But if BD does it, if you don't like BD, give it to somebody else. Give it to a professional if you can afford it, so that you can do more of the bits that you really enjoy, irrespective of where in that business it is.
Yeah, there's I think it's David Allen quote where he talks about that aspect of choice. And I'm pretty sure this is the quote. You can do anything, but not everything. And it applies to so much in terms of, I think, you just got to play to your strengths. Life is way too short to spend acres of your time doing things that just do not bring you any joy or fulfillment. And generally, you tend to be pretty worse at them as well.
Absolutely.
I know I am. I'm the same with finance. I have got this weird sort of perversion now with finance. I think you touched on it with yours as well, that I'm not into doing tax returns. I've got an accountant that looks after all of that. But of course, we have to do the reconciliation every quarter with all my kind of receipts and transactions and things. Weirdly, that's turned into a bit of a treat. Like, I almost weirdly look forward to it when it comes around every 3 months, where I just sort of get myself a nice coffee and sit down for an hour or so and go through the last, month or so of transactions that I've inevitably ignored. And it's incredibly satisfying. I think about the numbers is that they behave that in a way that other aspects of a business often don't. You can make them fit, and there's a beginning, middle, and end to them that in a different way than a lot of aspects of running a business just aren't. For example, email. Like, I was chatting with my wife the other night about this, that at some point you have to have a boundary that goes, that's enough for today. There will always be more email. There will always be more admin to do. I could be doing this for the rest of my life and I still wouldn't get to the bottom of it. So you have to kind of figure out, that's enough. That's me done for today, which is a really tricky position. I think for people who are early into freelancing, who don't have the discipline of a 9 to 5, that can be a bit of a trap that people fall into.
When I first started EGL, 2015 we started then, and the year before that, where we were doing the business plan and all that type of stuff, I worked every single day. Monday to Sunday. I was on my computer. I was in Sheffield, in my office. Monday to Friday, I did some long days, and then I Saturday and Sunday I'd sit in my house and I'd work all day Saturday and Sunday too, and then I did that all year. Literally, I didn't take any time off at all, and I worked every single day. And I don't say that to flex. It's not big and it's not clever. Do not do it. It's terrible. The only time I gave myself off was at Christmas, and then that, and I was still thinking about it because I was excited about it. And then I met my missus about a year after we launched EGL, 2016. I should know this, but 2016. 1st of October 2016. Good point.
Good save, Harry.
Yeah, so I met her then, and then the next year, 2017, she wanted to go on holiday, and I wanted to work as usual, and she refused to let me. She refused to let me work. I had to do the first day when we just arrived because we just launched a big client, and I just had to. So she allowed me that. She allowed me that, but then I took the rest of the week off, and I didn't work at all. I just sat and drank beer and laid on a beach. And I didn't realize just how burned out I was until that point. Until she forced me to take time off. Since then, I have worked on a weekend. This is 2017. I could probably count on one hand the number of weekends that I've worked since. I'm still not great at taking holidays. Not taking unless I'm going somewhere. I'm still not great at taking holidays. So, despite being a wellbeing consultant, I am still human, and I don't, I'm not perfect. I took 1 week off last year, which was, and I decorated my house in that week, so it wasn't really a decent week off. And I hate decorating, so it wasn't really a decent week off. This year, I've created a spreadsheet to keep me honest. So I need to take at least 5 days every quarter, and I'll log on a spreadsheet, and I'll see whether I'm failing or achieving it or not. But I learned that the hard way about setting boundaries. But you need to stick to them, and none of us are perfect with it.
You touched on this briefly. I don't want to spend, again, too much time talking about some of the negative aspects of running a business, but I think this is a really common one that a lot of people don't see coming when they first start out in freelancing. The experience of loneliness. How have you built strategies to cope with that element of running your own business?
I haven't really, to be honest. To be open with you, I'm really fortunate where I've got a partner who supports me. I'm really fortunate, and I can't imagine her not being there. To be honest, yeah, it's a hard question. That it's a really good question, and something that I need to reflect upon. I try and keep connections with my friends. It's like when everyone's busy. You got a circle of friends who you love to bits, but things kids have got commitments to go that you need to take them to, or you've got work trips and all this type of stuff. And they get in the way of you seeing the people that you want to spend your time with outside of your immediate family or your partner. One way that me and my friends have tried to mitigate this, we do the pub quiz every final Thursday of the month, come rain or shine. And we at least see each other. There's a small group of us in the pub quiz team. We see each other at least once a month to do that. And that has enabled us to, whilst we're there, organise other things, because we all like rugby league, as an example. We used to go to the Leeds games. We were season ticket holders for years. It's enabled us to do things like that. A lot of it is spontaneity. It's not planned. There's no process or mechanism. It's just intention. I think that is the main point I'm trying to make. Is I've tried to get around it through intention, through putting myself out there and going to see people and then doing the same.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. I was out in town the other day and I bumped into this lady who I know, who's called Sue, and I was chatting with her, and my wife and kids were with us. And later on, my wife was like, "Who is that?" I said, "Oh, that's Sue. She runs the fish and chip shop in town." And she says, "How do you know the fish and chip shop's lady's name?" I said, "Well, I thought about it." And I was like, "Oh, I don't go that often. It's not like I go every day or anything. It's just that I think my coping strategy for loneliness is that very often I can have entire days go by where I don't talk to anybody because I'm just heads down working on a project or something like that. And to make up for that, I usually go for a walk and I will do my best to connect with whoever's there, and I'll find something out about them. Not that I'm nosy or anything, but that's kind of my strategy, is that I will talk to strangers." And that somehow helps, that just a sense of connection with somebody that you're likely to see again. I guess it's back to what you were talking about in terms of social and community side of things. And we see each other all the time, whether she's working or not. It's really nice thing. There are other people like that as well, sort of coffee shop owners and people who run market stalls that I go and chat to. But it is something that's worth thinking about for people who haven't been in this life before, that it can, if you're not careful, create a real sense of loneliness.
And you need to when you work on your own, is important. It's really important that you seek out and seize opportunities to engage with other people. You know, whether that's through something professional, like a networking event or a conference or whatever. You know, it could be something along those lines, or like you've referenced, somewhere in your local community that aren't work related. Just go and engage and just talk to people. You know, we're given this thought that talk to strangers is a bad thing when we're younger. You know, but I actually I think the opposite. You know, be safe, of course, but I think there's so much value in talking to strangers that you can uncover in your local community if you obviously do it safely. And coffee shops, bars, they're good places to go and to do that. But if you're not comfortable doing that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Think about what you enjoy doing and go do that and find people that enjoy that. So there's a Leeds subreddit on Reddit, which I'm part of. People talk about their love of football. They want to join a five-a-side team. Who wants to create one? And they're created through localized subreddits. You can do it through Facebook. You can find groups on Meetup, for sewing or whatever. Whatever you like, go do it, but with other people in one room. And that's what we did with Juice. That was our whole thing. Was if you like this, come and do it with other people, and people that don't yet know that they love sewing will find their love of sewing at this event. You find Definitely. Your people wherever they are. There's so much opportunity now through the internet that you can use and utilize.
And I'd be remiss here, Gary, if I didn't talk about Free Spirits, the community there, which is specifically for people who are freelancing in the L&D space. And you've just joined as a wizard, right?
I have, yeah, well-being with. I did tell Kim that I was disappointed that my code wasn't "You're a wizard, Gary." So I think it was a perfect opportunity, and it wasn't that. And yeah, so when I joined, her first message to me was "You're a wizard, Gary," and that was the message I was waiting for. But yeah, the L&D Free Spirits group, the community, the seasoned people in there. They've been doing freelancing and running their own business for a long time. There's people that are new to freelancing, and there's so many nuggets of good of advice ready to be taken from these people. Through something that you already know that you're all interested in, well worth joining it.
Can I ask you a question from our last guest, which was Emma Collar? And her question was, what would be your North Star word that will guide your decision-making this year?
Good question.
So she actually had a few for different aspects of her life. So there was kind of a work one, a health one, and a life one. But I think she was just interested. Do you have a word that you might pick that would capture what you're hoping to achieve in your business this year?
I mean, it's not a bit of a rubbish word, but impact would be my word. And the reason why I pick that is because I joined the fitness industry because I wanted to help people with their well-being goals. So 10, 20 people at any given time. I joined the University of Sheffield because no longer were I impacting 10 to 20 people, I was potentially impacting 8,000 people. I created the subsidiary because no longer were I supporting 8,000 people, I could now potentially support hundreds of thousands of people, depending on the success of the business. Impact has always been my sort of scaling factor through the decisions I've made and the opportunities I've said yes to. The comment that my work now is still working with large organizations, and I want to continue to build upon that with the same view that the more organizations that I can work with, the more people I can get in front of, through my work, from afar. And impact is what's always is what's driven my decision making. So I think that would be my word for not just this year, but probably every year. That's probably always going to motivate me to do what I do. The things that I'm working on at the moment to achieve that is I'm potentially working with a big ICS in the NHS, so a regional group of NHS organisations. I'm working with them to help them get more value from their well-being. The current investment in well-being without having to increase their budgets. That's a big thing in public sector. So I'm helping them there to get more from what they already have. I'm working with a very large national government department on the conversation canvas, training their line managers to have more well-being conversations with their colleagues as part of their broader framework, which includes the appraisal and L&D and all the other largely OD subjects. So I'm working with them, and they've got around 19,000 employees across England and Wales, and they're one of 5 departments with 15 to 25,000 employees each. So it's all about picking where that impact can be made and then trying to do something there. So impact would be my word, I think.
Love that. It definitely sounds like a huge impact, given the size of some of those organisations. Thanks, Gary.
I hope so.
Did you want to have a go at setting a question for our next guest?
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. So, what do you think? What do you wish you knew at the beginning of your freelance experience that you know now?
And do you want to have a crack at answering it for yourself?
I wish I knew the business model canvas when I first started my business, where EGL in particular. So the business model canvas, for those that haven't seen it or come across it before, is a free to use tool by a company called Strategizer. You can map out your entire business plan, every element of it on one page of A4. I spent a year making a business plan for EGL. A year, and I worked really hard on it. It was massive. And then the second that we launched the business, I had to change one thing, and the whole thing was obsolete. A year's worth of work. Just I had to pivot on one element of the proposition, and the whole thing all my assumptions were wrong because the business changed. If I had the business model canvas from day one, I could have iterated on that immediately, and the whole thing would have still stood up. And I picked that up 2016, I think, something like that. Yeah. So I was already a good number of years into the business when I found that tool, and I use it so much now. I've got a big whiteboard over there that's got the business model canvas on, and I use it all the time. But also I changed it slightly for internal use, and I use it for all my internal projects now. So when I'm reviewing wellbeing propositions, I use the same models, the same things, but just slightly different terminology for internal use. So instead of revenue streams, it's success factors. So an internal project isn't about generating revenue, so that's not relevant, but it has objectives to be achieved, and that's where that goes. So it's a really powerful tool, well worth looking at if you haven't come across it before.
Super duper. Thanks, Gary. I'll make sure I'll leave a link to that in the show notes when this one goes out. That's brilliant. I've got an important question to ask you, which is the question we ask all our guests on this podcast, and it is, what do you charge?
What do I charge? Not enough.
No one said that yet. I love that.
So it depends on the client, really. So my day rate is 1,100.
I'm just going to ring that depends bell. There's a depends bell that we will ring if anyone says it depends.
My day rate is 1,100 a day, and that's for all my consultancy work. I discount by 20% for public sector, third sector charities, and B corporations. And the reason why I do that is because they are my target sectors that I want to work with. I want to work with organizations that make impact, linking back to my word earlier. I want to work with organizations that make an impact, but also public and third sectors in particular. They're just great places to be.
Yeah.
Really fun organizations to work with, really bureaucratic and complicated organizations to work with. And I enjoy that too. It's like pulling teeth sometimes, but I love it. It's great. Yeah. 1,100 a day is my day rate. That's what I consistently get public setting in primarily private sector work. But I have various caveats to that too.
Final question, Gary. So people who've been listening into the podcast and would like to find out a bit more about you, obviously you're a wellbeing wizard on Free Spirits Network, that goes without saying. How else can people find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm not as active on LinkedIn as I would like to be. That's very much a work in progress. I've had other stuff happening in the background that's just sort of taken me away from it. But it's an easy way of getting in touch. So just Gary Butterfield on there. My website, there's a contact form on there. So it's joyjunction.co.uk. Head onto there and you can contact me through that too. I go to face-to-face events as often as I can. Connecting HR, which we're both connected to, so I'm there. So or just drop me an email. You know, there's get in touch with me that way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us on the episode today, Gary. It's been wonderful having you.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by leaving a review on your favourite podcast app. It really makes a difference. And if you want to learn more about how L&D Free Spirits can lift up your freelancing business, you can find out more information at ldfreespirits.com.